Today we're going to be making a Chinese restaurant classic, chop suey. We're going to start by preparing a whole bunch of vegetables. I began by cutting up about 3 bok choy that I separated and cleaned. First we'll cut off the leaf end of the bok choy, then we'll cut the root end into bite-sized pieces. The number of pieces you make is dependent on the size of the bok choy itself, but it comes out to roughly 4 pieces each. Then cut the leaf end of the bok choy into 3 or 4 large pieces. Don't forget to remove any damaged parts of the leaves that you may have. Now in a separate mixing bowl, we'll place the thicker root end of the bok choy and move the leaf ends to the edge of the cutting board. Next, we'll slice up 4 cremini mushrooms. I started by removing the stems so I had a flat surface to cut on, then I thinly sliced the mushrooms. Make sure to wash your mushrooms thoroughly before cutting them up. We'll add the mushrooms to the bok choy mixing bowl and set that aside. Now we'll chop up 4 stalks of cleaned celery, being sure to remove both ends before cutting into 1/4 inch pieces. Then we'll place those in with our other veggies and get to chopping up some carrots. First we'll remove the tip of the carrot and the root end. Then we'll cut the carrot in half so we have easier to manage pieces. Then we'll slice that in half lengthwise so we have a flat surface to cut on. Once again, add to our big old veggie bowl. Finally, we'll prep some snow peas. First we'll remove the ends or any damaged parts of the peas, then we'll cut those in half. Simple, but time consuming for sure. If you got any methods for quicker snow pea prep, please let me know in the comments. We'll put our bok choy leaves and snow peas together and move on to making our sauce. We'll start by combining 1 teaspoon of toasted sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce, 1.5 teaspoons of dark soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce, half a teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of white pepper, and 3/4 cup of halal chicken stock. Whisk that all up and set it aside. Next we'll make our marinade. We'll come in with a tablespoon of peanut oil or other neutral flavored oil like canola or vegetable, 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and 2 tablespoons of water. We'll whisk that all up and set it aside. We'll start by preparing about 2 pounds of halal chicken breast from MidamarHalal.com by patting it dry with a paper towel, removing the fat, then cutting into bite-sized chunks. We want these to be pretty big so they don't get lost in with all of our veggies. We'll let that rest for about 15 minutes. Let's get cooking! We're going to start by heating up 3 to 4 tablespoons of peanut oil in a pan until it moves almost like water. Then we'll add in our chicken and cook until each piece has a nice crust on both sides. Make sure not to overcrowd the pan. This should take a couple minutes per side. Once our chicken is cooked, we'll turn off the heat, remove any burnt bits, then add in our thicker veggies. Now, as you can see, the pan I was using was way too small for this amount of vegetables. This is an easy fix though. Grab a bigger pot, or in my case a Dutch oven, and move all your veggies and oil into the Dutch oven. We'll stir fry those over medium heat for 5 minutes or until the vegetables have softened a bit and their color has deepened. Then we'll add 3 large cloves of garlic and stir fry that until fragrant. Once it's smelling good and garlicky, we'll add in our sauce, mix that up, then bring it to a simmer and let cook for 7 to 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. Once those veggies have softened up, we'll add in our bok choy and snow peas and cook, stirring occasionally for 5 minutes. Now we'll reintroduce our chicken and stir fry that for about 5 minutes. Finally, we'll slowly stream in a cornstarch slurry. To make that, combine 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and 3 tablespoons of cold water. It's key to stream this in slowly because we don't want it to thicken our sauce too much. You want it thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. Once you're happy with where it's at, it's time to eat. I recommend serving with Kaiser spring rolls available at MidamarHalal.com and some white rice. And that's it for this recipe. This dish was awesome. I highly recommend you give it a try, and we'll see you next week with another delicious halal recipe.